The headstone has the wrong year on it. That is the first thing you notice, if you know to look. The marble is white, the letters are plain, and the birth year reads 1924. It has read 1924 since June 7, 1971, when the army buried the man, with full military honors, and recorded the date from his enlistment papers, the same papers that a 17-year-old boy and his older sister had falsified, in a post office in Greenville, Texas, in the summer of 1942, because the boy was too young to serve and too stubborn not to. He asked for a plain stone, no gold leaf, even though Medal of Honor recipients are entitled to it. He wanted to look like everyone else. The army built him a walkway anyway, not because he was a president or a general, or a man who shaped the politics of nations. A flagstone path was eventually poured into the grass of Arlington National Cemetery. Section 46. Because the people who came to this grave, veterans, their children, strangers who had seen his face on movie screens, came in such numbers year after year that the earth above him could not survive their weight. It is the second most visited grave in Arlington, after Kennedy's. The man beneath the wrong year was 5 feet 5 inches tall. He weighed 110 pounds the first time he tried to enlist. He had a 5th grade education. 3 branches of the military turned him away before he found a way in. By the time he was 19, he had earned every combat decoration for valor. The United States Army was authorized to give. This is the story of how that happened, and it is the story of what it cost. A cost that never appeared on any citation, that earned no ribbon, and that visited him every night for the remaining 26 years of his life. If this kind of history is important to you, the real stories, not the sanitized versions, subscribe to this channel. Every week we go back to the places and the people that history almost forgot. Hit subscribe and let's continue. To understand Audie Murphy, you have to understand Hunt County, Texas, in the years of the Great Depression. The land is flat and relentless. Cotton fields stretch to the horizon in every direction. The work is backbreaking, and the pay is almost nothing. And the families who worked those fields lived in a poverty so ordinary. It had no particular name. It was simply life, the only life they had ever known. Emmett Murphy, Audie's father, was not a bad man by the standards of hard times. He was a man who left. He fathered 12 children, and eventually walked away from all of them, leaving his wife Josie with the older children to raise the younger ones, as best they could on whatever work could be found. Audie, quiet, small, watchful, became the family's hunter. Not metaphorically. He took the .22 rifle into the fields and came back with squirrels, rabbits, whatever the land offered. When asked once about his accuracy, he gave an answer that tells you everything. If I don't shoot straight, we don't eat. His mother Josie died in May 1941. Audie was 15 years old. He and his older sister Corinne faced a decision that no teenager should face. The younger children would have to go to the state orphanage. There was no other way. Audie made a promise. He would get them back. 6 months later, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Murphy wanted to fight. He had always wanted to fight. He went to the Marine Corps first. They turned him away. Underweight and underage. He tried the Navy. Same answer. He tried the Army paratroopers. The recruiting sergeant looked at the slight, baby-faced boy in front of him and sent him home. Murphy sat down with his sister Corinne, and they made a plan. She signed a notarized document attesting he had been born in 1924, not 1925, making him appear old enough to meet the Army's minimum age requirement. Shortly after his 17th birthday, Audie Murphy walked into the recruiting office in Greenville, Texas, and enlisted in the United States Army. He was assigned to B Company, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division. He would carry that assignment to the end of the war and beyond. In memory, in nightmares, in the way combat soldiers carry their units, like a second skin for the rest of their lives. Murphy arrived in North Africa in early 1943 as a private. He saw no combat in Africa, but he watched. He listened. He understood, with the instincts of a boy who had spent his life reading terrain, that war was a craft, and that craft could be learned. His commanders noticed him almost immediately, not for any single act of heroism, but for something quieter and harder to define. Murphy paid attention. He did not panic. He possessed the rarest quality in a combat soldier. The ability to think clearly when everything around him was designed to prevent clear thinking, In Sicily in 1943, Murphy saw his first real combat. He distinguished himself in a series of small actions that would establish the pattern of his war. A man who consistently placed himself between danger and the men around him. Not out of recklessness, but out of something that looked from the outside like absolute calm. He contracted malaria in Italy. Murphy treated it the way he treated everything the war threw at him. He recovered, and he went back. At Anzio, in the brutal grinding stalemate of 1944, Murphy crawled out to a German tank alone, destroyed it with rifle grenades, and killed the crew. He was promoted, he was wounded, he returned, he was promoted again. This was the rhythm of Audie Murphy's war. The Allied invasion of southern France in August 1944, Operation Dragoon, brought the 3rd Infantry Division onto Yellow Beach, near Ramatuelle on the French Riviera. What happened in the days after the landings would earn him the Distinguished Service Cross, the 2nd highest award for valor in the United States Army. Murphy's platoon was fighting through a vineyard when 2 German soldiers appeared to be surrendering. Murphy's closest friend moved forward to take them prisoner. The Germans shot him dead. Murphy was alone in the open, under direct fire 50 yards from the house. He advanced anyway. He cleared the house. He killed 6, wounded 2, took 11 prisoners. He never, in any interview or account, described this action with pride. He described it the way soldiers describe things they did, because they had to do them. By October 1944, Murphy had earned 2 Silver Stars and received a battlefield commission. He was 19 years old, a 2nd lieutenant, and he had been shot through the leg, a wound that required surgery after gangrene set in. Many men would have gone home on medical grounds. Murphy recovered and went back to his regiment. In December 1944, Germany launched the Battle of the Bulge, a massive counteroffensive that pushed Allied lines back into Belgium, and for a few terrifying weeks raised the genuine possibility that the war's outcome was not yet decided. On New Year's Eve 1944, Germany launched Operation Northwind, its last major offensive on the Western Front. In the Alsace region of France, 30,000 German troops were concentrated in what became known as the Colmar Pocket, the last German-held territory on French soil. Murphy rejoined his regiment in January 1945 after recovering from his leg wound. B Company was ordered to attack through the Bois de Riedvier, a frozen forest on the outskirts of Holtzwihr. The attack went badly. Of the approximately 128 men who began the assault, only 19 remained fit for combat by evening. 6 of the company's 7 officers had been killed or wounded. Murphy, as the surviving officer, became company commander. He had been in command for less than 24 hours when the Germans counterattacked. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, January 26, 1945, Murphy saw through the frozen fields a German force assembling. 6 tanks and approximately 250 elite infantry from the 2nd German Mountain Division, troops brought down from Norway. They were dressed in white camouflage suits. Murphy ordered his men back into the woods. He stayed. He grabbed a telephone and began calling artillery coordinates to the rear, directing fire onto the advancing Germans. He fired his M1 carbine until his ammunition ran out. Then he saw something that should not have been there. An M10 tank destroyer, already hit and burning in the field, its turret-mounted 50 caliber machine gun still intact. He climbed on top of the burning vehicle. The Medal of Honor citation reads, "For an hour, the Germans tried every available weapon to eliminate Murphy, but he continued to hold his position. His directing of artillery fire wiped out many of the enemy. He killed or wounded about 50. The citation is precise and correct and misses almost everything. Murphy stood on that burning tank destroyer, a vehicle that could have exploded at any moment, alone in full view of German infantry and armor, in a frozen field in eastern France, and he shot back. When a German squad crawled toward him through a drainage ditch, he traversed the machine gun and killed them where they lay. When artillery observers asked him how close the Germans were, his answer has passed into military legend. "Just hold the phone and I'll let you talk to one of the bastards." He was wounded in the leg during the stand. He did not stop. After 1 hour, he ran out of ammunition. Only then did he leave the tank destroyer. Moments after he reached the tree line, the turret on which he had been standing blew apart. Murphy refused medical evacuation. He organized a counterattack. The company retook its original position. The following day, reinforced units captured Holtzwihr. Murphy was 19 years old. On June 2, 1945, near Salzburg, Austria, Lieutenant General Alexander Patch presented Audie Murphy with the Medal of Honor. By the end of the war, he had accumulated 33 military awards: the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, the Legion of Merit, 2 Bronze Stars with the V device, 3 Purple Hearts, the Presidential Unit Citation. France awarded him the Legion of Honor, Chevalier Grade, along with 2 Croix de Guerre and the Medal of a Liberated France. Belgium awarded him the Croix de Guerre. He had been in combat for roughly 20 months, hospitalized 3 times, survived malaria, fought from North Africa to Central Europe, credited with the elimination of at least 240 enemy soldiers. He was 20 years old. In July 1945, Life magazine put his face on its cover. Actor James Cagney saw the magazine. He called Murphy and invited him to Hollywood. Murphy boarded the plane to California with approximately $10 in his pocket. Hollywood was a place that understood what to do with war heroes. Murphy made 44 feature films over 21 years. He was the most popular Western actor in America in 1955. In that same year, after years of resistance, he agreed to play himself in the film adaptation of his autobiography, To Hell and Back. It became Universal Studios' highest-grossing picture until 1975. He was, by any external measure, a success. At night, he slept with a loaded pistol under his pillow. The condition was called battle fatigue in 1945. Today it is called post-traumatic stress disorder. In 1945, it was understood as weakness of character, a failure of nerve, something a strong man ought to be able to will himself past. Murphy could not will himself past it. He had nightmares, he had headaches. He had a temper that frightened people who knew only the gentle, soft-spoken man he appeared to be in public. He was prescribed Placidil, a powerful sedative. Murphy became dependent on it. By the mid-1960s, he recognized the dependency for what it was. He checked into a motel room alone, locked the door, and spent nearly a week fighting through withdrawal without medical assistance. He won that battle the same way he had won every other battle, by refusing to stop. What he did next was, in some ways, the most remarkable thing he ever did. Murphy began to speak publicly about PTSD at a time when it was almost unheard of for a decorated combat veteran to do so. He spoke to Congress. He wrote about it. He urged the government to fund research. He said what no one else of his generation was saying: that war does not end when the shooting stops, that a man can perform extraordinary acts of courage and still come home broken, that the valor and the damage are not contradictions, but consequences of the same experience. He was, in this advocacy, decades ahead of his time. In his later years, Murphy's finances deteriorated. He refused, despite considerable fees, to appear in commercials for alcohol or cigarettes. He did not want to set a bad example for young people. The man who had spent a decade playing heroes on screen would not lend his face to a cigarette ad. On May 28, 1971, Murphy boarded a private plane in Georgia. He was traveling to Martinsville, Virginia, on business. The weather over Virginia was rain, fog, cloud cover, zero visibility. The pilot requested an emergency landing at Roanoke Regional Airport. The request was acknowledged. The aircraft never arrived. It struck the side of Brush Mountain, a ridge in the Appalachians, at approximately 6:30 in the evening. There were no survivors. Murphy was 45 years old. He would have turned 46 the following month. On June 7, 1971, he was buried at Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. In attendance were Ambassador to the United Nations George H.W. Bush, Army Chief of Staff William Westmoreland, and many members of the 3rd Infantry Division. Murphy had requested that his headstone bear no gold leaf. He wanted to rest among ordinary soldiers. His request was honored. The headstone still has the wrong year on it. That has not changed. The marble is still white, the letters still plain, the birth year still 1924, the year Audie Murphy and his sister Corinne agreed on, in a post office in Greenville, Texas, when he was 17 years old, and the war needed fighting, and 3 branches of the military had already told him no. He never corrected the record, neither did the Army. The people still come. On any Tuesday in November, any Sunday in March, there is someone standing at the end of that flagstone walkway. Some of them drive for hours. Some stop because they notice the path, curious about what warrants a path. And then they read the name and they stand quietly for a while, before walking away. On Brush Mountain in Virginia, the Appalachian Trail passes close to the site. There is a small marker. Most hikers read it and keep moving. The Life magazine cover from July 1945 shows him at 20 years old, in uniform wearing the medals. The Smithsonian noticed something about that photograph, that every photograph of Murphy shares. His smile never quite reaches his eyes. There is something hurt and haunted in every expression. It was always there. The cameras always caught it. He asked at the end to rest among ordinary soldiers. The wrong year remains, the walkway remains. The people keep coming to a grave that looks like any other grave. Because that, more than the medals or the movies, or the burning tank in a frozen French field, may be the truest thing about him. He knew exactly what it had cost. He just never said. If this story moved you, if you believe the full truth of these men, deserves to be told, subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who should hear it. We'll be back with another chapter of history that refuses to be forgotten.